Hi everyone, I'm Rick Beato. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how to record combo amps and clean guitar sounds. The first thing that we need to do is choose our microphones. Now, my favorite choice of microphones for recording guitars, whether it's clean guitars, heavy guitars, is the Shure SM57 and the Sennheiser MD421. Okay, these are both great guitar mics. They're great for a lot of different things. They're great on drums, but I like to use two microphones to capture a guitar sound. Depending on the application, I will also use a 57 combined with something like this, like an AKG 414 BLUS or an AKG 452 EB. Sometimes I'll use a large diaphragm condenser mic blended with a 57, sometimes a small diaphragm condenser mic blended with a 57. Really depends on the situation. Condenser mics like this are very good at picking up a full range of sound, whereas the 57 is really more geared towards picking up the mid-range with a peak of about 5.5K or so. There's like peaks, there's a little bit of bump around 5.5K with a 57. These are real full range microphones to use to capture the other part of the guitar sound if you want to get that really deep low end and really top high end on it. If you had two 57s, that would work just fine, but these are the go-to mics for recording guitar amps and have been for years and years. Let's talk about setup. Okay, the amplifier that we're going to be using for today's episode is a Vox AC30. This is one that was made in England. I can't remember how old it is, but it's probably at least 15 years old or so. Now you'll notice that I have these two microphones on the speakers. I have the 421 on one speaker, I have the 57 on the other. One of the things is that you want to make sure that the capsules are about the same distance away from the amp. Try and make them actually exactly the same distance away from the amp. The capsules on some microphones are actually set back. If you can see in there, the Sennheiser capsule is actually about 1/4 of an inch behind, maybe almost a 1/2 an inch behind the end of the microphone. Okay, the SM57's capsule is a little bit closer, so I'm going to want to account for that. Reason being that you want the microphones to be in phase as much as possible. Microphone placement is really crucial. Okay, let's check out the mic placement. The Sennheiser is placed between the dust cover, the dust cone in the center of the speaker, and the edge of the speaker. Okay, one of the reasons I do this is because I want it to pick up a little bit more low end than the 57, because the 57 actually doesn't pick up as much low end as a 421. Now the 57 is essentially right where the dust cover meets the center of the speaker. Okay, let me demonstrate the mic placement on this Yamaha NS10 so it'll be easier for you to see, because you can't really see inside this cabinet that well. So the 57 that I'm using, I would put right here, right so it's where the dust cone meets the speaker. That's pretty much right there. Okay, so like that. Imagine this on the 12-inch speaker in the cabinet. The 421 on the other speaker, I'm going to place right here. So right between here on this part of the cone. Okay, so the 57's here on the speaker on the left in my demonstration, and the 421 is here. Okay, now by being here, it's going to pick up a lot more low end, because the further out from the center you get, the more bottom end you pick up. The closer to the center you get, sometimes we'll have an amp that's really dark, and I'll put the microphone right in the center, but that's very, very rare. I usually will put it right there where the dust cone meets where the dust cover, which is this, meets the cone. Okay? Okay, here's a view from above the amplifier, just to kind of give you a reference point. That's where the two microphones are. So the 57 is, you can see where it is there, and there's the 421. They are right up against the grill cloth. Not touching completely, but really, really close. And I have them both going to two different channels. Okay, let's take a look at the amp setup here. I'm plugged into the Brilliant channel, I don't have the tremolo, it's not engaged here. So this doesn't really have anything to do. That's a particular channel. That's for the tremolo channel. Tremolo channel is here with the white knobs. So the normal is not engaged. So this is my volume here, the Brilliant channel volume. Okay. Then you have treble, bass, and then cut. That's basically a high and low cut. Okay, I want you to take a look at something else here. I have this big foam barrier here because I have a glass window into the control room. And I don't want to get any reflections off of that glass barrier into the microphones. I don't want it to affect the sound at all of the amplifier. So it's always good to isolate the amp to a certain degree. Now we're on carpet, so it's going to deaden any reflection off the floor. Next thing I want to do is turn the amp on and warm it up. You always want to warm up the power tubes before you start recording. I usually do that for about 10 minutes or so. Let me talk about order of importance as far as sound is concerned. The most important thing is the instrument and the amplifier to get a great guitar sound. Before you have an amp, it doesn't matter. You can have the nicest mics, the best mic pre's, it doesn't matter. If you don't have a great sound source, you cannot get a great sound. So for this instance, I'm choosing my American Standard Telecaster, which is going through my Vox AC30. Coming into the control room, I've got two channels. One is for the 57 and the other one is for the 421. Okay, I've got everything plugged in. I've got my 57 going through this Neve 1081, and then I have the 421 going through another channel, the 1081. Okay, so right now, start the recorder. I have the 57 up and running, and I've got a slight amount of gain on this tone, but it's really good tone, real basic. A little bit of gain on it, but not too gainy. Now I can hit my EP boost pedal a little bit harder, which I just did, which adds a little bit more gain to it to make it a little beefier. Then I'm going to engage the 421. You can hear that. This is with the... That's with the 421 added. Let me play the 421 by itself. Now the 421 doesn't have the same top end to it. It's got much richer bottom end. Listen. When I combine it with the 57, that's without me doing any EQ at all, okay? So now, right here we have Neve 1081s. I have a pair of them that have a 4-band EQ and a high and low pass shelf. I have them set flat right now, but if I need the EQ, I have it ready to go. Okay. I've got a very basic tone up here, a little bit of my EP booster, and then just straight into the amp. Now here's my two mic pre's. Now I'm going to isolate them and play just the 57, and I'm going to do a little EQing on it. This is where my 57's coming in, so I've got a good level on it already, but what I want to do is take a little bit of the top end off, or I'm going to put a little bit of mids into it. So I'm going to EQ it. Here, I'm going to put some more mids. That fills out the mids just a little bit. Listen before, after. after. Adding a little bit of 470. I'm going to try it. I think 470 is pretty good. I'm not doing anything else. Now I'm going to engage the 421. I want to add a little bit of bottom in on this, which I'll probably do on the 57 as well. I'm going to engage, let's say we'll start at 100 hertz here. Engage the EQ. Now I've got more apparent level because I'm actually adding. That's pretty strong sound there. It's still a little bright on the top end. So what I can do is I can come up here on the 57. I'm actually just going to back down the volume of the 57 a little bit in my balance. I'm going to back it down here and listen to it. There's another way to mic a combo amp, and that's from the front and the back. Now here I have the 421 on the opposite speaker in the back. I don't know if you can see that very well. I think you can. That right there will allow the amp, once the phase is flipped on it, to be in perfect phase. Here's the front 57 on the front. And on the opposite speaker, I've got the 421. I could put it on the same speaker as well. Okay, so let me show you how this sounds. Now the front mic is still the same. It sounds identical. Now the rear mic, the 421, the Sennheiser MD421, I'm going to put that in right now. I'm going to turn that on. And this is what it sounds like. It sounds all strange and hollowed out. That's because it's completely 180 degrees out of phase. Now I'm going to flip the phase button. Listen to this. So that should be perfectly in phase. I'm going to play you what that mic sounds like by itself. So that's the behind mic. Here's the front mic with it. You notice it has a big, fat, low, mid bump to it. So that gives you about gives you a bump at about 150 hertz. Now, this sounds a little bit too bassy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the 57 up in volume. And I'm going to bring the 421 down in volume. It's got a real fatness to the low end that you can hear. So that's what it sounds like with a front and rear mic. That's called miking an open back cabinet. gives you a bump at about 150 hertz, low end bump. But you have to flip the back mic out of phase so that it's in phase. I'll show you a view of what it looks like in and out of phase here. Okay, so here it is in phase. And here it is out of phase. You can see that the waveform is inverted. Okay, I'll put it back in phase and you can see it. Okay, so we've just scratched the surface with recording clean electric guitars. And we're going to get into recording some high gain guitars. I'm going to show you a bunch of tricks with those, how to get them sounding super fat. I'm also going to show you how to use multiple amplifiers in recording, how to make sure they're all in phase, how to use two heads at the same time in two different cabinets. That's all for now. Please subscribe here and at my Everything Music Facebook page if you haven't already. Also, check out the Beato Book in the link provided below. I'm Rick Beato.